It's Sunday, and do you know what time it is? We're going to be talking about the housing market. And this week, I have a guest that you guys absolutely loved and asked for him to come back. And we have some important things to talk to him about because there's been so many things that have happened in the real estate market in the past week. It's mind blowing. At any time throughout this live stream, I want to make sure that you guys know that I'm going to put this up here because I don't have a producer today. He quit on me. He quit on me. So I'm just going to put this up. So if you have a question, make sure you put the word question first and then your question because I'm by myself. So I have to look for it. So if you could just put the word question and then your question, then we'll get to it. But Matt Kelderman is back from Dallas, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he's going to be showing us, we're going to be talking about what's happening with a lot of builders out there because it's total nonsense. I had heard about this happening in California months ago. Well, now they have brought their crazy tricks to make home buyers pay more money for their homes, and they've brought it now to Texas, and people's minds are blown. But this has been going on for a long time, and Matt's going to be talking to us about it. And we're also going to be talking about some things that are going on with the lumber prices, and we're going to be talking about this article that came out about houses and who's actually purchasing them, which I've already kind of prefaced it with Matt a little bit. And he's like, that's nonsense. And I couldn't agree more because I think it's nonsense too. So without further ado, why do people say that without further ado? Anyways, here's Matt Kelderman. Yay! I wish I had a sound effect.
I know, that would be good. Just like a little round of applause sounder.
Yeah. Awesome. Matt, before I even get started, I want to thank my subscribers because I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm about 1,700 subscribers away, 1,700 subscribers away of making 100,000 subscribers to my channel. Like, I think only like 3 to 5% of YouTubers actually make it to that point. So I can't thank people enough that actually take the time every week to watch my videos. And I get hundreds of emails of people that are like helping me on these broadcasts that I do, the live streams every week. They send me articles. They thank me. They show me other things that they've seen in their market. I recently had a subscriber that sent me some articles about something I had talked about that people said, "Oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist." And then they ended up finding article after article after article. Yep. So I'm very thankful to my subscribers because they're so good to me, and hopefully I'm just as good to them, but they seem to be happy with me so far.
I love that. Well, I'll tell you for real, congratulations when you hit the 100,000, but that's unreal. And I get the chance to know you in some of these other spaces where you're like a resource for other people, and it's well earned, right? Like you come from a place of contribution all the time, and it's good that that's being recognized on the other side too.
Yeah. Well, I know that real estate agents, I'm going to get off my high horse for just 1 second, but real estate agents always look at anything on social media as a competition. And everybody that I know that's a real estate agent, I don't even care what level you're at. I tell them everything I know because it was so frustrating trying to learn it on my own. So I share that with everybody all the time. Anytime anybody calls, if I have 5 minutes, I will tell them how I did it. That's awesome. I'll tell them how I did it. So that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. I'm going to talk about the real estate market because I'm going to put up, I know there, Jennifer, you have a question, but I want to throw up this article really quick because it's about your market. So we're going to share it right here. I don't have a producer.
We got a couple that are in Texas and then
yes,
down the street.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. So this couple is left scrambling under a new home contract. I'm not going to push play because they can't hear it. But this poor couple in Central Texas ends up purchasing a house. After they put in this contract, it hasn't been built yet. They agreed upon a price. As things went on, it went up a little bit because they added some upgrades, whether it was, some roofing shingles or the type of wiring. But they knew they were going to be paying a little bit more. Fast forward, now it's been 9 months, and they were told they were going to have to pay a $99,000 surcharge on top of the price they already agreed upon. And now they can't purchase it because that is way too much money. It's $100,000 over the budget, and they don't have a house to live in. They sold their house, and they have no house to live in. Yeah. So is this what's going on, Matt? Tell us.
Well, yes, it's going on because we got articles to prove it. I will tell you, I'm glad this is not happening to me. I believe what the consumer needs to understand is that the builder contract itself isn't regulated the way the normal state contracts are. Meaning the builder obviously writes their own contract, which is essentially what allows them to do this type of scary stuff, right? Like, you've got the one up here about canceling the new home contract, but they've got, as the builder would rather have you terminate the contract right now in some cases, especially if you've been under contract with them for months, because they can turn around now and probably sell that house for 10 to 15% more. And let's be honest, they're not really worried about the bad pub right now because people are going to be in lines out of their builder offices every Saturday and Sunday anyways. So I think it's just a matter of them not really worrying about the consumer experience too much and more worrying about their dollars, right? And that's what that $99,000, that's insanity.
Yes. And I don't know I don't know how long you've been doing this, but
9 years now.
Okay. Back in the day, let me get my jacket. It's hot in here. Back in the day when in 2006 and 7, builders were building houses like freaking popcorn. And you had builders that weren't really experienced in building homes, building houses like popcorn. And then the housing crash happened. They had no money and they went bankrupt, and people were left in these houses that were lemons. And I'm not saying that's going to happen now, but what I am saying is that the builders are in control. And when they are in control, things tend to get sloppy. Yeah. And they're having a hard time getting these crews to come and do the work that they need to have done. Construction time is a lot slower, and they are still in control. They could, at the end of the day, I heard this months ago and I was like, this is crazy. But in California, it's not uncommon to, agree upon a price. And by the time of closing, you're paying a lot more than what the contract originally said. And I was like, is that true? Like, I never had heard anything like that because we never have had anything like that here in Louisiana. And that was Julie Patterson. And Julie's like, that's normal.
I've heard of that in other states. I've heard that in some of the Northeast states. You can go back and like renegotiate after you're under contract because somebody else brings a higher offer. Like, how does a real estate deal ever get done, right? Like, if it's just always you can just one up somebody, it seems like there's never a point where you can feel secure. I saw Jennifer drop in the comment thing, the buyer's agent. That's exactly what this article goes on to say. Like, I don't know if these people were unrepresented or not, but yeah, there has to be somebody representing your fiduciary interest. Even if you bought homes before, because the new build contract isn't like the regular contract. It has, most of them honestly say the home doesn't even have to appraise, you're still buying it. That's been something that's been in builder contracts for years, right? And now they're really starting to exercise some of these crazy terms in there.
They did not have a real estate agent.
Yeah.
They did not have a real estate agent. I had another article, but I had to turn it off because it kept blaring in my ears. But it was the same situation, same exact thing, different builder. Completely different builder in another area of Texas, but in Texas again. And they sure enough canceled their contract because they were going to surcharge them $99,000 for wood. But here's the thing. There's another article that just came out. And this is another insanity thing that the Home Builders Association is kind of like, stop blaming lumber prices on they're saying the lumber prices are being blamed on the wrong thing when it comes to the price hikes. It's import duties that are coming in from California. And it isn't just the cost of lumber that's causing the prices to go up. They're also saying that, the price of copper has gone up. The price of appliances have gone up. It isn't just lumber. So you can't blame just the lumber costs on the prices of homes going up, is what they're stating. So
and I agree. I mean, literally every single cost associated with the new build transaction has gone up, right? The logistics of getting it from point A to point B have gone up. Go out and try ordering a stove or a pool pump right now. See how that works out for you. I've got a listing coming on the market. We've been waiting for pool pumps for 2.5 months because they got fried in that ice storm we had in Dallas back in February. We can't get pool pumps, right? It's just everything that's associated with the home purchase is difficult to get and backed up somewhere. Apparently 14 months into COVID, we haven't figured out the logistics of getting things from point A to point B yet.
Well, and some of it is will loosen up soon. Some of the problem is that when a lot of these foreign ships have come in, we have a rule that they have to stay in the dock for 10 days before they can unpack their shipments. I don't know if you knew that or not. So
No, I didn't,
that
but
causes a delay, and stuff being moved, which wasn't there before. I don't know if they're going to pull that up now. Maybe you have to, I don't know how it all works. I'm not even going to pretend I know this, but I just know that they do have a delay each time the shipment comes in. You have to wait. It's a 10-day quarantine day. So,
well, and one of the things too with this that again we're not addressing, I think somebody mentioned in the comments, is that there is just some greed going on here too. There's everybody sees an opportunity to make money, and they're going to jack up prices. And if you want to buy now, you're going to have to pay based on what they think it might be worth in a little bit. And it's the new build side was very unfortunate. I'll be honest with you, I've only repped 3 new builds in the past 6 months, kind of because of this. They're just very difficult deals to get done.
Yeah, they're difficult deals, and the greed has gotten pretty disgusting. And you and I talked about this a little bit off of camera, but one of the things that I had spoken about several times that people have that's a conspiracy theory, which was corporations are coming in and purchasing whole subdivisions before they even have scraped the first lot. And they're like, that's not true. Yes, it is. People like Blackstone have come through and they work with individual investors. Blackstone makes it a combination deal, works with people like D.R. Horton and says, we already know that you've already signed to have this subdivision built. We're going to go ahead and buy out your whole subdivision for this amount of money. D.R. Horton's like, good. We don't have to deal with individual buyers. We can get it done and put up these houses and call it a day. Blackstone is going to go ahead and make a company that will service the individual investors for these houses, and then they're going to go ahead and turn them into rental units. And this isn't just one subdivision. This is happening all over the country. I have people that are sending me articles all over the place. I've heard it's happening in Charlotte. I heard it's happening in Atlanta. And now I know it's happening in Texas because I was able to pull up some articles from Austin, Texas, and up there. I forgot where this other little town was, but it was right there in Texas.
So the other one was Waxahachie too. But I mean, look, I personally know of foreign investor hedge funds that are buying up properties here, right? Mm-hmm. It just 100% for sure happening. And to your point, I've heard you say before, it is going to drive up prices to a point where it makes it difficult for some people if there isn't some way to regulate it and slow it down a little bit. I don't know what that is either. I'm not smart enough to figure that part of it out.
I don't know either. Good. All right. Well, we do have our first question. Jennifer Lego says, do you see a lot of FTHB pay over appraisal? If so, how much is average? My limit will be max over 5%.
So I assume first time home buyers are the FTHB, right? So yes, it depends on your loan product, right? There's some loan products that are more restrictive. Some lenders are a little bit more restrictive, but there's no doubt. I mean, look, and I don't mean this to scare anybody off, but we've seen as low as people getting homes right at list price, right? I had a nice young couple, first-time home buyers, just closed on a house that was between the 300 and 400 range. One other offer, they got it at list price. We got it to closing. It was a nice, cute house, right? Nothing too crazy. I've seen houses that are listed at 300 sell for 350, right? 360. And most of that's being guaranteed. I will say the one thing about our local market that's been really nice is I feel like the appraisers have kept the market in check. And I said this last month when I was on. If you are going to go over list price and appraise that guarantee that appraisal gap difference, meaning, right, like if you're going to say you're going to pay $20,000 over, you better be prepared to learn to pay that $20,000 over, because appraisers are keeping the market in check. And that is what makes it so different than 2008, right? 2008, these loans were so leveraged through the bank and people couldn't pay them back. It's hard assets. It's real cash coming off the sidelines now to make up the difference. But 5% stout, I mean, that's no joke. I mean, if you can guarantee $15,000 over on a $300,000 house, that is a very quality, solid offer. Some people might beat you, but you're not writing the worst offer out there. No, by no means.
I know, but the problem is that, huh?
It stinks. It's definitely not fun,
Right. I was just going to say that the problem is that a lot of first-time home buyers are in a different kind of predicament than, let's say, people that are our age or older, because we have leverage with other types of capital. Yep. But these young kids don't, and they're cashing out their 401ks and their life savings just to have that overage of the appraisal to be able to purchase a house. that makes me nervous. I don't want anybody to drain out their savings account in order to purchase a house. That isn't what the American dream is about, and like kids that are, I say kids, and people in their 20s buying their first home have pretty much been purchased out of the market. I just don't see how it's going to turn around anytime soon. I know everybody's waiting for a crash. And it would have been better. Better for people that were purchasing if they allowed for the foreclosure process to happen. But I understand why they didn't, because they didn't want a flood of foreclosures tanking the housing market. So it's like we have a catch-22 on that one. I don't know.
I'm not as doom and gloom on some of this as some people are, right? Like I agree with everything you said. We should not be allowing people to drain and take their last little bit of cash to spend it on it, right? Mm-hmm. I also do think having somebody, and look, I understand how people feel about real estate agents in some capacity, right? Obviously,
yeah.
Right?
There's some dirt bags.
I don't care. That's fine. I know how I represent my clients. So but having a trusted advisor who not only understands the market, but also understands your financial situation, right? So they can go and represent you in the proper fiduciary way. That's a huge part of this, right? It's not just go write an offer. You can be protected by the contract in certain states in certain ways. There's all kinds of things that can be done by somebody who understands what they're doing. That can at least protect you from making too ridiculous of a decision, right? And then understanding where the market's going. I don't think the market is going to crater. I think buyer fatigue is going to set in. It is going to level off. And then there will be some people who paid $440 for their house now, and it will be worth $440 a year from now, which technically is a loss because your home shouldn't be a flat across the year, right? But yeah, I've seen buyers giving up their first year of equity essentially to get into a home. That can be a little scary.
It is. Sal says, do you believe interest rates may increase flow following a possible increase in inventory? The experts, people that are smarter than Matt and I, have said that once people were going to get their and everybody started moving back into the workforce, and things started escalating, that we were going to see an increase of supply. Not only that, they said before it actually had happened, because it did happen for a brief period of time, that we would have an increase in inventory as soon as interest rates went up. And do you know what happened after interest rates went up? It made people actually crazier. And they're like, oh my gosh, we better get in now. And we had even a worse rush of people trying to get into houses because interest rates ticked up a minute amount. But one of the things I want to show you is here, let me I'm going to share this one article with you. Chrome tab. No. Let's see here. Yes. Oh, and see, not my producer's back, so he's going to put it up.
I heard him. I was like, which one do you want?
Which one do you want? Because I normally have them in order. And there has been a decrease of people putting their house on the market, and they're like, oh, like this, they're like, oh, look, the signs are happening. There's less houses being sold. There's less houses being sold because there isn't enough houses. Like there isn't any houses on the market.
This is the great thing about statistics. And it's why I love baseball. And it translates so much to like clickbait headlines too. But it's like, you can use a stat to say whatever you want. Yes, the total number of home transactions are down because the total number of homes for sale are down. You know what I mean? The market's crashing. It's because, again, it goes back to the inventory issue. There just isn't any.
They said the existing home sales went from 6.1 million to 5.85 million. They were expected to go to 6.02 million, and it did not. It did not go up. It went down. And I know, it, like you say, it's buyer fatigue, but it's also sellers scared. Sellers are scared. They're like, yeah, great, I can sell my house for mint, but where the heck am I going to go? I have nowhere to go. The only people that I know for sure are like, well, I have to move, are the people that are being relocated. And they're saying, well, I have no choice. I have to sell my house. Hopefully I'll have something to buy when I go over to the next place. That's the biggest thing. So I'll tell you, I'm in and out of a lot of living rooms on a lot of listing appointments. I'm still very, very active on the real estate side. And granted, we're in Texas, so maybe the perception's a little bit different. But I don't hear people talk. People aren't not selling because of COVID anymore, right? That's what we heard most of last year. The common objection sitting in somebody's living room is, where are we going to go? Because you just painted this amazing picture
of how the market's going to look and how we're going to be able to dictate terms on the majority of these offers and how all these amazing things are going to happen. And that means we're going to have to turn around and fight in the exact same market, right? And just there's some people who just don't want to do that. But I've got 4 people that we just put on our listing that are all moving out of state. So they obviously have a need to sell. They're selling no matter what this market is, right? So there are some people who can make a pretty good transition depending on where they're moving to, right?
Because a lot more capital.
It's a little calmer. You might be able to be up some money. But if you're buying in Dallas and selling in Dallas, you're just turning around and giving all those profits back to somebody else.
I know. Well, and that's like everybody at the beginning, and especially in Texas, are like, Californians are ruining the prices. California. I'm like, it's not just Californians, buddy.
Oh, no. No,
those aren't the only people moving.
Yeah, I do a lot of out-of-state referrals, so I get a really real life view of this. This is not like, there's this whole thing, don't California my Texas, right? Whatever. First of all, I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not what's happening. Most of the deals I'm doing right now are people who are upgrading their house. Maybe COVID taught them that both of us working from home, we need another living room, we need more space. So there's a lot of that going on too, right? We'll see how I'm curious to see how the summer is. If there's a little bit of an increase just in the natural summer market because people are moving and they need to be in before school. I haven't heard it on the phones and in my listing appointments yet, though.
Well, normally we're out of school here. I mean, the kids are out, and normally you start to see the couple weeks before school lets out a good uptick of homes. So this week I went on our MLS and I put in from 200 to 600,000 because that would be a good, that's a good stretch of an income of people would be purchasing a home. We only have 189. That's actually down from a couple months ago. 189 houses, and over 25% of those, almost 35% of those, are proposed construction. They're not even existing homes that people can purchase. And then I started going through to see the ones that are less expensive, and they need a ton of work. Yeah. And it blows my mind.
I know. Oh yeah, go ahead. Perfect.
Okay.
And I saw earlier, I was like, oh, I love this one.
Question: how can millennials ever afford in California if their whole entire family lives and they don't care to relocate? How can millennials ever afford in California if this is where their entire family lives and they don't care to relocate? Buy together.
I don't think you can, right? And I will say, I don't know where in California, right? I understand all of California is an oceanside mountain, everything's $2 million. I get that. So I understand it changes geographically, but yeah, I mean, if you're in one of these really high dollar areas and you're trying to move, I've wondered this for years, how people move to California or New York City and wait tables and live. Like, you'd be making $250,000 a year waiting tables in order to live in some place in Manhattan, right? You're probably gonna have to move out of the outskirts. If your family lives in LA, you may not get to buy in LA. You have to move an hour outside of town, right? If you want to stay in California. I don't know how.
My brother did that. My brother did the New York thing. And so he lived in an apartment where he said that he made an agreement with the rats that were there. So it was he said that it was literally about the size of a closet, and it had a bathroom, like a community bathroom. Like, you had to make an appointment basically to use the bathroom. And he said that he had this one side of the bed where he could have the twin mattress, and then the other side was left for the rats. And he made an agreement with them that they wouldn't touch him. And so he did that for a couple of years because he had this thing in his head, if I make it here, I can make it anywhere. He heard that his whole life, and he makes really good money now. But all right, affordable retirement communities are a growth industry. Well, as more people retire, yeah, of course they are.
I know multiple guys here locally who they
commodities
build and kind of get everything up and running with assisted living facilities, and there is a lot of money in that right now. Right.
Girl went to high school with, made a retirement community and then built another one. She's a millionaire, and it's good money. Smaller affordable homes need to be built. Absolutely. Matt and I have talked about this before. Everything where I am is at least 400 to 500,000. No one is building 1,400 to 1,800 square feet. And there's a reason behind there.
Yes.
And the reason being is if a builder can build a 2-story house on a postage stamp lot and it's 2,500 square feet, and it really only costs him X amount, a little bit more just to add that second floor so he can charge you more money, he's going to do it. There's no incentive for a builder to build houses that are smaller so you could buy a more affordable house. This is where I think this is one of those things that I hate to say this word, but don't hate me in the comments. The government needs to step in, and this is how they can step in without causing too many breaking toes. They can give building materials to builders that are willing to build smaller homes at a lesser expensive cost than it would be for the regular standard home builder. They could also give out some public land that isn't being used, not necessarily, of course, not like Federal Reserve land that you would use for wildlife, but there's tons of land that the government owns. They ain't doing nothing with. Yep. And they could. Not only that, your local city officials have public lands they're not doing poop with, not a thing. And it's been sitting there for eons because at some point somebody made a master plan hoping that this was going to turn into a big giant metropolis, but that isn't for another 100 years.
Yep.
Well, instead of that, why don't you turn it into affordable housing options? They have the ability to do it. It's just getting people on board to do it. So
I'm just such a realist about this. And I think the second you start following the money, you realize why that's going to be so hard to ever implement sometimes, right? Like, because I agree with you. It is very doable. And it is because builders are not incentivized to build small houses. I just came from a community where it's literally the fences. It's just, there's no alleyways. There's nothing. It's just fence after fence backed up to the other fence of the people behind you. There's no privacy in the lots. And I understand there's a need for that housing, but these houses were 2,700 square feet. It's not like these were tiny houses, just those 2 stories. You look out the top window and you're just looking right at the other person's roof.
Yep. If they gave the builders an incentive to build them, they would build them. I mean, that it all comes down to their money and their time. You give them money and they'll have the time.
And it comes back to the geography too, right? Like it's just, of course, there are going to be areas where this is a little bit more doable. Like I look at DFW as a whole, and there's just so much infill in every single inch of everything between the airport and the outskirts. Would somebody want to live 45 minutes on the other side of the Metroplex in an area where they wouldn't be? Like everybody wants it, but then it's like, are there enough people who are going to deal with the inconvenience of where it might be in this area, right? So I think it just changes so much by market.
Ryan B says something that makes me very sad. Like I literally am like, he says, just live in your car, the new American dream, which literally I have pulled up some numbers, and if it continues to grow the way it has, even if it levels off, unless your kids are like really, really, really like making some serious bank and have no student loans, most likely my kids will not be able to afford a home unless it is inherited to them. Yeah. We're gonna end up being a nation of renters.
Well, and it goes back to your thing about having the large corporations buy stuff up, right?
It does.
That's how that problem gets exacerbated and ultimately slows down or becomes completely solved.
Yeah, I know. In North Carolina, in a mobile home from 1996 just sold for $100K over what it was 4 years ago. And this, I thank you for sharing that, because people always love to tell me, they tell me all the time, once you buy a manufactured home and put it on the lot, it's worthless. And Dave Ramsey, his famous quote is, a manufactured home is a car you sleep in. And I argue this to death because that's literally total BS, because it does have value. Now, does it have the same kind of value that a traditional stick-built home would? No, of course it doesn't. But is it absolutely worthless? Absolutely not. Just like any piece of property, if you maintain this home, this manufactured home, it is a regular house that is considered real property. It will gain value. And just like they just showed, they just acquired an additional $100,000. And that wasn't just the land that increased that much, because that's what Dave Ramsey said.
The land is almost never going to be the catalyst. It's like if most people go and looks at their tax value online or wherever you get it, the improvement is the majority of the value in the land. The dirt, unless it's just a prime location, is very rarely the most valuable thing of the housing purchase.
Dave Ramsey said it's because of the land it went up in value. It has nothing to do with the manufactured home. Yeah. And I'm like, dude,
he's got some great stuff. I also think sometimes he listens to his own mouth a little too much.
Well, I think he's a classist because when he says that to people who've called in, they own a manufactured home. I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like they have a home that they can live in that they're not paying rent to. You'd rather them pay rent or live in a home that they own. Like so stupid. Anyway,
I agree.
I'll get off that. Okay. There are hundreds of towns in California that are affordable, just not on the beach. Wayne, that would be great if you could let some people know in the comment section where those towns are, because everybody I've ever talked to in California say it's absolutely ludicrous.
And I think it's really easy to use a word like affordable when the metrics for everybody's finances are different. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know
Exactly.
I mean? Like, I'm not saying that about Wayne. I'm just saying I'm sure. Look, somebody said in the comments, like, why would anybody ever want to move to San Francisco? If you're a multimillionaire, move to San Francisco. It's amazing, whatever, right? But for the majority of people, that makes no sense. I get it. I would never live there, right? But
well, do you know they have this like labor shortage in California right now? But because what happened was a lot of people that lived in California, you know, they had roommates, they had these jobs that would be almost like just a hair above minimum wage or, you know, just a little bit more. And they're like, why am I living here? I can't even go to work right now. I'm not going to work here anymore. So like those jobs like waitresses, hostess, receptionists at hair salons, those kinds of things, those people just went back home. They're like, I'm not going to stay in California. I don't have a job. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go home. And they did. They went home. And now they're having a hard time finding labor. But that's a totally different discussion. Totally different discussion.
I believe it.
All right. Do we have any more questions, Eddie? I have my guy back. He's back. Question. What about your idea of purchasing land and living in an RV until it becomes more affordable to live? It's still an idea. And they do predict that the lumber and material prices are not going to stay. They won't stay this high. They can't. They already know it's overinflated. They know that the tariffs are ridiculous, and they have stated at some point it will drop. Now here in Louisiana, I don't know if it's common there, but people do it all the time. They'll buy a piece of property. There is a restriction on there. You have to build a home within a couple of years. So they'll live in an RV or a really small manufactured home they bought for cheap, put it on the piece of property. And while they're building their house over that 2-year period of time, they're just staying in the little manufactured home. And then afterwards, they'll take that manufactured home and put it in the back and turn it into a game room.
I literally have some clients doing that right now. We're getting ready to sell their house. They've already bought a land like an hour from here. They've got a trailer on it that they're going to live in while they remodel a house that nobody's even set foot in 12 years. So you can only imagine kind of what shape it's in, right? And that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, one of the article that we read earlier about the lumber, one of the other reasons why the lumber ended up being so high and there was a shortage, they didn't put it in account. They actually thought that people wouldn't be doing all these home projects. Believe it or not, that is still a thing that they just didn't think about. And they slowed down production. They sent people home. They're like, people aren't going to be wanting to do anything. They're going to be staying at home. Well, when they're staying at home, they're like, hey, this is a great time to fix up that crap I didn't do.
I've got a bunch of extra time. Let's go break it.
Oh yeah, a lot of Louisiana people, but hate Louisiana flooding. And isn't that the truth? We just had another flood. Have another flood. There was earlier this week, like I'm thinking like Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember. I think it was Monday. It just had a storm out of nowhere came. We were told it was going to happen, and it deluged like in so quick. I mean, that was like the epitome of someone needed to record that as a flash flood, because they're literally areas that never have ever flooded before ended up flooding because so much water had come down at one time. And it looked like somebody was just dumping bathtubs of water down. The sound, like we have these really high pitched roofs here, and the sound was insane. So crazy. Lawnmower, one of my longtime subscribers, says a local place has a sign out front that says employee shortage is so sick bad. Long hair freaky people can apply. long hair freaky people can apply. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, like, whatever. California is a big state. Avoiding looking in beach communities or LA Metro or San Francisco Metro. That is still a lot of areas. True. But
absolutely.
Well, where's the jobs though?
That's the jobs? Thing is, and this is, and I've seen this a bunch in the comments. And I look, if you are in a community or you have the type of job where you can move out to an area that's a little bit off the beaten path, you have a ton of options other people don't have. The reality is The reason when you look at a light pollution map of the United States, it's all concentrated in like 10 areas. Guys, I don't want to be a jerk, but that's just where all the money flows through in the country, right? Like people are going to gravitate to where all the jobs are. DFW is so filled in and people live in that area because there's jobs and infrastructure for all of that, right? Most people don't want to move out and have a 2-hour drive if they can avoid it. That's just, I know it's like not really great to say, but that's just the economics of how like this country is set up, right? Mm-hmm. People are not just going to disperse to, and I'm from Iowa, so I'll say this. People are not going to disperse to the backwaters of Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri because it's cheaper, because the job that they have can't be replicated there. So they have to stay close to that, right? That's what's driving the majority of this.
Yeah, Kim has it right. She said, who wants to drive 2 hours to get to a job? Yeah. My husband used to drive, I think it was an hour and 15 minutes to get to a job.
No way.
I'm sorry, it was 45 minutes, but sometimes it was an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. He's screaming an hour and 45.
An hour and 40. And look, he deserves credit for that because that is a brutally long drive.
I told him not to take the job, but we won't get in that argument. Boise real estate is going crazy. Houses are going to double digit every month. And they're not going to get any better because, the median price of a home right now is $389, I believe. And then they say that by the end of the January, it's going to be $409 for a median price home. That's almost $500,000 for the average median home in the United States.
It blows my mind. And these states that I think too don't have the same landmass opportunities, right? Meaning like, even these smaller Midwestern states that I'm super familiar with. I'm not really super familiar with that part of the Northwest, but there's just not a ton of opportunity going on there. So people are continuing, whether they're leaving or staying. Their income is not going up with what the home prices have increased. And I'm sure in areas like Idaho and Montana and places where there's tons of government land, where are they going? Like, where are people going to go? Right.
Montana's prices have skyrocketed.
I believe it.
Like they're ridiculous. I'd had somebody on here that is a Montana real estate agent, and he actually did first video he ever did on YouTube. He talked about Montana. He even knows it isn't even that great a video, but it went viral because there were so many people that were interested in his area of Montana. Same with Wyoming. I mean, those areas are gotten way expensive. But just a few years ago, the average median price of a home was $220,000. And now we're gonna be heading into $409, nearly $500,000 in a 5-year period.
It makes it very difficult to break into, right? It makes it very difficult for you to break into. If you're one of those people who bought on the lower end, you're obviously being able to enjoy all of this equity. You can continue to roll that in the next house and the next house, and you have a jump start. At some point, there is going to be a price where, as we sit here and kind of bag on California and New York, the reality is what we're all talking about is how does the average person get into a home there? When you start talking about $400,000 or $500,000 is the median home price, that's a pretty stout yearly salary you have to afford that kind of home.
You're gonna have to have a really good job with no debt in order to make that happen. Has concrete increased much as lumber? If not, why not build ICF? Every part of the house, every single component of the house has increased, and concrete was going up prior to the pandemic. It already had increased in price. To pour a concrete pad is it's not cheap. It used to be.
I believe
it's
it.
not
Not
anymore.
Labor shortage and all that other stuff. Like you said, every part of this is being affected.
Yep, there's a labor shortage. You can't get subcontractors to show up that they're supposed to. I can't get an electrician or a plumber to come to. I have a rental house that needs to be looked at, and I can't get anybody to come out. Yep. So I don't know. Yeah, every component when it comes to housing has increased. Now, in my last video, I did talk about a few things that people could do if they're considering about building their own home, and that is, I don't know if you've seen kit homes. Have you seen those?
Yes, I haven't seen them around here, but I've seen them just in my real estate kind of knowledge.
Okay, so
I've never seen it built around here.
Right. They're pretty common, and you may have even seen one, but you didn't realize it. So a kit home is basically every component that you would need in a house is delivered in one shot. So all your lumber and everything else, and it gives you a detailed plan on how to put this home together. So it has it, in sections so you don't mess up. You can hire a contractor to do that. It will save you money because of the fact that they don't have to wait for building materials, and you're not paying for contractors waiting for certain building materials and all that other stuff. So when you have your roofers come out, all the roofing materials are there. When you're having your drywall done, all the drywall and all the drywall nails, everything that they need is right there, and they can put it together. So Kid Homes is something you should look at if you are having a hard time finding a builder.
Ooh, we really should do this back. I mean, like there's memes of it, but literally Sears Roebuck used to ship people homes. Yeah, Sears Homes right there.
Yeah,
Sears used to do this. They would ship people homes on trains,
and they're beautiful.
And they would build them themselves.
Yeah, I've talked about this in several videos. Somebody says, "Is that it's a real mug?" It is, but honestly, I like big mugs, and I cannot lie. but this is not I have a bigger one.
That's ridiculous.
My husband he's a smarty pants, and he's like, "I got you a really cool big mug." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I got you for Mother's Day."
That's a bird bath.
Yeah, I don't even. So I just leave it up here because I mean, what are you gonna? I was gonna use it as a mixing bowl. He's like, "No, it's a teacup." I'm like, "I could use this as a mixing bowl," but he won't let me. So it sits up there. I could use it as a workout. I want to say thank you to the Jennifer Lego for going ahead and giving me a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Every dollar helps to sponsor the channel. But I will say, future channels, I'm figuring out how super chats can actually help the homeless, because YouTube has it where you can connect your live streams where you can connect it to a charity. So I'm trying to find a charity that is already connected to YouTube, so we can help fight the homeless. So every time that somebody gives a super chat, it will go straight to them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm going to find, but I'm still looking. There's one company out there, but I'm not too sure about them. I want to investigate them further before I start allowing my subscribers to donate. Yeah. Okay. Well, Wyoming home prices are so insane right now. I know. We're actually moving back to Florida to buy a pool home for a fraction of the cost in Wyoming. And you wouldn't think that.
Who people would say that 10 years ago. I'm moving from Wyoming to Florida because Wyoming's too expensive.
I know. I know. I know, because at one time my aunt lived in Wyoming, and you could have literally, bought 10 acres and a house that was built in the 50s, like a Rambler for $85,000. And then you moved to Florida and it was like, you want to double that in order to get a house or what,
Well, and the thing about this too is, right, I think it's important for people to know that we're talking about obviously what the market's doing. There's still opportunity out there, right? There are still sellers who have a need to sell because, there's a lot of, we didn't even get to this. There's a lot of off-market deals happening, I think, right? They've tried to kind of curtail this, but there's still a lot of opportunity in the market out there. It's just when you see these articles or you see kind of some of the insane stories. I mean, I've seen people, we had one on our team that went under contract, the luxury market at 1.25.
Mm-hmm.
The second buyer came along and reached out to the listing agent and asked if they could purchase the contract from the first buyer for $250,000. They just wanted to buy the contract. And the first buyer said no, which is even more insane. They turned down $250,000 because they knew they were just going to have to go out and probably give that same money back to somebody else to purchase another comparable house.
So my God.
That's bonkers. And I also had a nice little couple who's never bought a house before that was doing an FHA loan, right? A loan that's a little bit restrictive in a market like this. Get into a house without having to pay over, get appraised. It was a nice house. They're super happy to move into, right? So there are still opportunities out there, but you have to be willing to go out and fight for some. You got to hang out a little bit to find some of them too. I've heard, and I haven't done one of these, but I've heard that a few people, they know that the market is really good. So they've been putting their house on Facebook Marketplace because they're like, I'm not hiring a freaking realtor. And they put it on Facebook Marketplace. The buyer beware when it comes to that is be sure that the people that are selling the house actually own the house. Because this happened years ago. This didn't happen recently, but there was a girl in my office that had listed a house and she just let them, fill out the paperwork. She didn't even check. And then when they got to the point where it was under contract, the title company calls her up and says, the tax records don't match the people that are on this sales contract. They were renting. They put their house up for sale that wasn't theirs. They were renting. I don't know what they were expecting to get out of that, but there's crazy out there. There's they'll take the deposit and run, or it doesn't. The scam is just to get a couple $1,000s and then sneak off into the night, right? That's always the bit.
Right. Right. So just like there's a whole lot of crazy and there's a lot of scammers out there. So if you are looking for this, make sure that the people that actually are selling the house actually own the house. And it's super easy to find out. Just go on your county tax record office. Ours was like Ascension Parish Tax Assessors. You plug in the address and it tells you exactly the names that are on there. And always, always, always ask for a property disclosure to be filled out. Always ask for that. So let's see, we got another question here. My property taxes increased 20% this year. Now, Division, I have a question for you. Does your area have a cap of how much they can increase your property taxes per year? Because my area does. They can't.
You couldn't do that in Texas.
Yeah, you couldn't increase it 20%.
No.
Could you
Here's the thing, not on your primary residence.
Right.
Your
right.
investment properties that have no exemptions on them, they can do whatever they want. But I can tell you right now, if you're in Texas or a homestead state, they can't do that on your primary residence.
Correct.
And again, this is why every year people protest your taxes every single year. Even if nothing comes from it, it doesn't matter. Get in the habit of every year filing a protest, right? Because it will eventually, even if it doesn't happen every year, there will be years where it comes down. There will be years they'll take a little bit off. Look, I'm just going to be super honest. These are tax assessors who most of the year probably don't have a ton to do and then just absolutely annihilated for 3 months during the year by pissed off people who are angry about their taxes. You go in there with a reasonable approach and a nice attitude, I bet you're going to get a little bit knocked off the top almost every time.
Well, here in Louisiana, a smile and a handshake gets you a lot, you know.
I'm telling you, I tell my clients every single year, I send comps to every single person who has ever purchased a home with me, ever. If I still have their address and we're still working together, I send them comps for their home to use for their tax protest every single year. Right?
Yep. I've never protested my taxes. I don't. A question: Would buying homes internationally be a smart decision now, or at least buying homes out of state? Depends on your finances.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
this inventory shortage is nationwide from a U.S. perspective.
It's all over the world.
Yeah, and I'd be doing you a huge disservice if I recommended someplace internationally. Here's what I will say. Airbnbs are murdering right now. If you can find a place so in Dallas specifically, and I know we're not a condo community, but our condo and townhome market is not felt the burst that the single family home market has felt.
Correct.
Right? There's condos that are still expiring and canceling and coming off the market. Now I know in beach communities, condos are a totally different deal, but that's what I've been looking at recently. Galveston's a perfect example here on the Texas side.
South Padre.
Where you can pick up properties that will stay rented year round. Right. Yep. Those
South
types
Padre.
of opportunities, I think, are amazing.
Yep. I used to visit out in South Padre, and I believe our friend Jeremy Knight from the Knight Group has a property out in South Padre, and he, like, as soon as he got it fixed up, it was rented out. So
my lender here's got like 3 of them, and they just stay full.
Cheyenne, Wyoming is getting a lot of building contracts and military contracts. They're buying up land that is hard to come by. We've also have people from Colorado moving here. That is true. Yeah. And Colorado's prices are crazy. They had a boom because of the wacky tobacco. They had a big boom because of that for a long period of time, and then they were just starting to see leveling out because people were overpaying at that point. Well, it didn't matter because then COVID hit, and sure enough, those prices are crazy. They're like, I've talked to several people that work that area, and they're like, I have never in a million years seen the nonsense of what people are willing to pay for houses like they have right now.
I have an aunt who lives in Mancos, which is outside of Durango. And it's the same thing. She's like, even out here in the high desert, people just want to be here. So I think there's a California to Colorado to Texas pipeline that I tend to see, right? Like as Colorado started filling up with Californians, then there are people who left Colorado to come to Texas. And then people from Northern California and Southern California started moving to Texas. And it's just been this weird kind of flow around, but it's really interesting how that's, especially the wacky tobacco affects the market.
Yeah. Well, and there has been a decrease of population in California and some of those northern states that normally would have a lot more people. The new census changed some congressional seats, so we'll be seeing the effects of that in a few years.
Yeah, for sure.
So, question: how often do lenders check your credit after you get pre-approved for a new home build? I know they check before closing, but what about before the closing? Oh yeah, they check several times.
Don't go buy a single thing until after your lender says your deal is funded. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing. And yeah, they'll pull your credit. Several times. Each time you draw during a new home build, they're going to make sure that first of all, they're going to check your employment. They're going to make sure that you haven't put anything on credit. They're always going to be checking because that's part of the underwriting process. So that way they know you can still purchase the home at the end. They're not going to continue on it unless they know you're a solid buyer. Yeah. They check it several times. No cap and property tax in Hawaii. Oh, boiled nuts. That's a longtime subscriber too, and a channel member. He's been here for 69 years. Love me some nice person. He helps me with my videos about retirement. Question: when two people try for a mortgage together, is it true they base the loan on the one with the crappiest credit score instead of the one with the best? No, opposite.
Yeah. Usually when you have two people on, it's because you're using one person's credit and one person's income.
Yes.
Right? You know what I mean? Like if the person with the crappy credit has a better income, then yes, you want to add it. Or if you just need their income in general. So sometimes you'll see this where maybe they go, like you'll see it, maybe a couple go get pre-qualified on one person and they're only pre-approved up to a certain dollar amount. It doesn't get them into the area they want to be in. So they take the other person and add them on there, and then it helps, increase the amount. Maybe it dings their credit score, the interest rate a little bit, having them both on there. But it gives them more purchase power because the other person's income.
I have seen an increase over the last 5 years of people that they end up buying a family dwelling. So it's like they buy a very large home. So they have their mom, their dad, their grandmother, and all of them living in one house. I would not like that personally, but I commend people that can do it because I don't know if I could live with my parents ever again in my life.
I'm 42, so no.
I'm way older than you, but I would literally.
No more.
Kristina says no. Matt, I live in Garland and Homestead. My taxes went up 14%. Tax protest service is confident she can get more than 2.5 guaranteed reduction.
So two things. First off, what up, Garland? I'm from Duck Creek and Oates Road, and you know right where that is, lawnmower, if you know. So on a homestead, here's the thing. A couple of things there. If you don't have the time, use the protest service. You can also protest your taxes for free by yourself. You don't need to pay somebody to do that. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. Secondarily, if they are guaranteeing 2.5%, that's bold, and I that might be worth it. The hardest part right now is that home prices are going up. They can justify the increase, right? And especially here, and they know that. So it is harder to get something off in a hot market. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, 2.5% is not terrible. I'd like for you to get it under 10% if it's just a 1 year increase. I mean, 10% is pretty dang high for a 1 year.
Yeah, it is. Congratulations, Kristina Smallhorn, on nearly 100,000 subscribers. I think I'm going to have it by Tuesday. And that blows my mind. I've worked very hard since 2017 on my YouTube channel, and it's nice to see that it's finally paying off. And I'm glad that people enjoy what I'm putting out there. I know that it's just been great. I'm very happy. Wow, I lived in Duck Creek 20 years ago.
Yeah. So 20 years ago, I would have been 22. So I was already gone by then.
Oh, I live near Centerville and Miller.
I know where it all is.
Eddie just subscribed. There's a guy.
Nice.
Is it Eddie or Ed? Edi Royal? Edi?
Give us the phonetics on it, Eddie.
Yeah, because
Eddie for now until you tell me it's different.
Yeah, Edi. I like it. So if now that this housing market is rolling forward, do you see an increase in prices throughout the year, or do you think it's going to cap out?
I think buyer fatigue is what I am counting on. I don't think, we talked about this last time, I don't think the influx in inventory that people want is coming, right? The foreclosures are not just going to flood the market with stuff.
Well, no, of course not.
So I do think interest rates will go up. I think there'll be a little bit of buyer fatigue. We are already seeing evictions happening here. Which is probably going to cause some investors to want to unload those properties. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to calm down a little bit. I already feel just a smidge of the 30, 40 offer thing going away, right? Now, the difference between 40 offers and 20 offers is still absurd, right? It at least brings your percentages into play. I saw Eddie say on here a minute ago that he was talking about how he bought a house in Mansfield, which is an area a little bit south of where I'm sitting right now. It was $450 and he paid $509. That's a fair representation of kind of what's going on. right?
I've heard a couple of them sitting on the market.
Yeah. So about 10. That's about 10% over list price, which is a fairly good indication what the DFW market's like for really hot houses right now.
I'm pulling up an article that I read not too long ago. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to be pulling this up. I'm sorry, my guy's going to be mad because I'm pulling up the article myself. He likes doing that. But this is, I always look to other real estate markets outside of the United States to see what they're doing, because Australia, New Zealand, California, I mean not California, but Canada, all these markets have been seeing a ridiculous housing increase. But this happened, and some of the prices have dropped too. Houses that normally would have had like 20 to 30 offers on it are sitting on the market for 8 to 10 days, which it doesn't seem like, like 8 to 10 days, who cares? Yeah. That's a shift. That's a big shift for them in their market.
And what that does is the second, and I tell buyers who maybe can't compete that first weekend because they can't offer appraisal guarantees, right? We have a whole thing in place where they don't really go out. We don't go out and look at homes until after they've made it through that first weekend. And what you've done is you just now eliminated all that frenzy around it. You've eliminated the seller's ability to say, we've got multiple offers, right? You get multiple offers the first week. You get multiple offers on day 8. You know what I mean? Not unless you've done some kind of price reduction or something like that, right? So that's the first indicator to me. Sellers will be 90 days behind this mentally, though, right? It will take sellers a while before they recognize their position, but the days on market ticking up is nice.
Yeah, but that's in a totally different country. Just FYI. Yeah,
our days on market are just moving a little bit, though, right? That's whether it's Australia or here. That days on market is your first key indicator. When we talk about lagging and leading indicators, in real estate's always happening 30 to 90 days in arrears, anyways, because that's how long it takes for the contract to close. So if we can look at some kind of leading indicator to jump on that sooner, it's days on market. That's the only thing you can see before it happens.
Exactly. And we said this, like when you look at statistical information, when it comes to housing information, it's always 90 days behind.
It is.
Like they'll say for last month, but it was really like 2 months ago. How do you think this market will impact investors and landlords? Do you think the government will step in to regulate or tax us heavier? I think it's going to depend on how many properties you have, just like a lot of investors anyways. Like certain rules don't apply to you if you only have X amount of houses, So I think that's where it's
like anything when we talk about taxation and stuff like that. And it's not something I'll get into because I'm not intelligent enough to speak about it with somebody who wants to argue. And secondarily, I think you just have to exercise a little bit of common sense too. If you're the type of investor who just owns less than 5 or 6 homes, it's probably not going to affect you. It's harder to get deals right now. Your normal avenues for getting deals aren't available. Off-market deals can typically sell for more than they are on the market, right? You're going to have to pay a premium, which means the deal's not going to be as great. So that's how it's going to affect you. But I don't see the government stepping in and regulating small investors at all. Right?
No.
It's not that benefit.
Right now, for some reason, it seems to be like they're taking down the rich. That's what their catchphrase is. Who knows what they're going to really actually do? That's all. Oh gosh. Anyways, what are your thoughts on offering over asking when you have an ultra low interest rate? When you amortize a 2.3 versus 5.4 in a normal market, you really have an extra money to offer and some.
Well, there's a couple of things going on there. One, just offering over list price isn't necessarily going to get you the home. It's the appraisal guarantee in these hotter markets that's really doing it, right? So that's great if you're looking at the cash down the road, but unless you have that cash on hand to pull on the sidelines right now and give it to the lender at closing, that money is just fictional money down the road somewhere. That's the first problem with that plan, right? But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of moving parts to a real estate transaction when you're making the financial decision about what's best for you individually. And there has to be some risk tolerance that you can stand in a market like this, at least here in DFW.
Right. And somebody said, well, according to the National Association of Realtors, you keep saying there's an affordability, meaning me, you keep saying there's an affordability crisis. And according to the National Association of Real Estate, because of the interest rates being so low, even though the prices have gone up, it's still just as affordable as ever. But I will contend one thing with you. With anybody who argues me with this about this, there's over 8 million people in the United States, over 8 million people that cannot find affordable housing. That is a lot of freaking people.
Yep.
And it was over 7 million before the pandemic. And you think now that with the home prices have gone up this much and rents have increased just as much, that number of 8 million isn't going to go higher. You're out of your damn mind.
Well,
and you have to have affordable housing. If you
Yes.
want people to work these jobs at a minimum wage, you're going to have the housing available for them, because they're right now, people that are making what they would say was below the median price are spending more than 45% of their income on just to have a roof over their head.
Right.
And the rest of it is for everything else. They still have health insurance, because most of these people work jobs that don't have health care benefits. Then they have to, there's all these other factors. And by the time they are literally living paycheck to paycheck, and whatever, if you don't think there's an affordability crisis, you're out of damn mind. That's all I can say.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
People argue with me.
There's a glut of buyers in wherever your market is. There's a glut of buyers in that first time home pocket, right? And so it's almost, you're just cannibalizing each other the whole time too. And then the investors come in with cash or do whatever, and then drive the price up like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, well, I mentioned this before, but the little bit of foreclosed properties that did hit the market during this time in areas of Texas, big corporations were purchasing them. They were purchasing them for their employees. And every time they went to go bid for a house, whoever the top bid was, they'd bet $1 more.
Just one more. Yeah.
Just to be that person.
Yep.
They weren't going to let anybody win. So if somebody said, 110,000, they'd say $110,001.
The price is right.
Yeah.
In the end.
I know. It's just so sick. Do you advise selling at these high prices now and then renting till a correction? You'd have to talk to your financial advisor about that.
Yeah, and here's as far as a limb as I will go out on this one, because everybody's finances are different and markets are so different. Mm-hmm. Here's where I would say if you currently own a home. Now, if you're sitting on the sidelines, it may not make sense for everybody to buy, but if you currently own a home, think of what you'd have to do. You'd have to time this market perfect, right? Meaning you got to time this market right before it starts to fall off the hill. And I bet you won't do that perfectly, right? To ensure that you get the most amount of money. Then we're also not talking, again, I don't think there's going to be a crater in the prices. I think there is going to be a leveling off. I think there will be people who see no equity increase, but I do not think a home that somebody paid $450 for in Dallas is going to be worth $350 in 5 years, right? That is catastrophic on so many levels if something like that was to happen to an area like DFW, right? So selling your house to go pay somebody else's rent makes no sense to me, right? This sell now and then go rent for 2 years. That's assuming that somehow the house that you just sold, let's say the house that you currently live in, you anticipate will be worth less money in 2 years. Also enough money for you to offset the fact that you just lost 2 years of equity by putting it in somebody else's pocket because you're renting. When you add up all those dollars, I don't see how in the world the market's going to drop back down to you to make financial sense.
At the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of people that took the forbearance, numbers that were even higher than when the crash happened in 2007. So at the beginning of this, I was like, this is gonna tank. There was no doubt in my mind. As time has gone on and as more corporations have opened up, a lot of people took the forbearance in the fact of they could do it. I
ran into a couple people who didn't need it. They took it.
They took it just because they were like, well, it'd be nice to have some extra cash around. And those numbers of forbearance keep dropping every single month. And then people have all the way until, I've said this a million times, but I'll keep saying it. They have all the way until June 30th to apply for forbearance. And if they apply on June 30th, they can still extend those payments all the way out for another additional 6 months. Let's just say those last people that are on forbearance don't pay their mortgage whatsoever. They just say, I can't do it. I can't find a job. I'm not going to do it. It takes a minimum of 400 days from the time that they actually foreclose on the property to get those people out to get it back onto the market. So if you're looking for a wave of foreclosures because of this, let's just say if it was going to happen, you're looking for almost 2 years for that to happen. Yeah. Almost 2 years.
I think we said it last month, that this idea that there's foreclosures are going to come and rescue this. That is not our bailout in this whole thing. Inventory is not going to, new home inventory will be fine. But again, we've got to get caught up. Then they got to start building again, right? That's still 18 months to 24 months out. There's really no inventory relief for this at all. That's why I think it's going to be buyer fatigue, which also leads me to believe it's not going to be some massive. The fact that this is hard cash off the sidelines being brought by the buyers, whether they're corporate buyers, end game buyers, personal buyers, and it's not banks leveraging the heck out of themselves, that makes a difference. That makes a difference how this is going to end up.
Daisy thinks so too.
No, I saw the dog. I was like, oh,
yeah, Daisy wanted to put her 2 cents in. Do you see a pullback in September, like major YouTubes like Meet Kevin? Do you see a pullback in September, like major YouTubers Meet Kevin?
Like housing pullback? I mean, I'll tell you, September, October are always just traditionally the months where people are going back to school. Investors are purchasing properties in October to get them ready for the spring market. There's a natural lull at the end of Q1 and the beginning of Q4 a little bit in a typical real estate market. Again, this year's just been so bonkers. I don't really know if that's going to happen. But yes, typically in September, like that's not super profound. Somebody saying, "Oh, September's going to slow down." Yeah, it does it every
right.
You know what I mean?
Does, right. You start the slowdown in mid-September all the way until January and February. And like, forget December, November. I always say after Halloween, you're going to have a lot more days on the market. I always tell sellers
that. Serious though. And this is what I tell buyers all the time. People who are listed specifically during the holidays, during that stretch about a week before Thanksgiving, all the way up to the end of the year, those are also really serious sellers too. Because
they have to
why
sell.
In the world would you deal with that beating during the holiday season if you didn't have to sell? So also as a buyer, if you're looking for a time, that's when you start around the holidays, days on market, right? That's what you start looking for. High days on market, people still listed, you know, that's where you can make a little bit of hay.
Except for last year.
It didn't matter. Year, right? And maybe this year too. But again, traditionally, that's been what the good play's been.
Do we have any more questions, Eddie, that you can throw up on the screen here? Me, Kevin is he's a real estate investor. He also talks about. Have you seen his channel?
I haven't. No, I'm bad about.
He's running for governor of California.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, he's a real estate investor. He talks about real estate. He also talks about Bitcoin. He made his claim to fame was that he did reaction videos to Grant Cardone.
Nice. I'm getting chewed up on Bitcoin right now.
I invest enough in cryptocurrency. My husband and I do. Years ago, a friend of ours told us about it. I don't put enough in there that I'm like crying.
No,
you know?
Me neither. I'm like, well, I got in late and that didn't really work out.
Yeah. Hey, we have 420 people here. I hope you guys give me a thumbs up. Me and Matt need it. Right. Yep. Do you realize adult professionals are living with their parents until they are 30 years old in Europe already? Is this and this is considered normal? Yeah, I'm sure that's normal there, but that isn't something we're used to here. So it's alarming to us. This is not. It used to be the median income home, a median income family or person could buy a house. Was it an awesome house? It was a little fixer upper. Everybody could do it. Young married couples could buy their first little house, fix it up, and then go ahead and build wealth and turn around and sell it in a few years. That's what people did. That was what was told to us from the time we were itty bitty. Your American dream is you go to college, you get an education, you get a good job, you get married, and you buy a little house. That was what it was told to us. That dream now for those kids now have student loan debt that's out the rear end. They can't buy a house because they're in debt to get this great job. The jobs aren't there and they have no choice but to live with their parents. And they're like, wait a minute. That's not what you told me. You told me if I followed all of these rules, I would be able to buy a home. And that dream is not happening anymore.
And it's not just home. That whole 1950s white picket fence kind of thing, right? None of that exists anymore. The 401k being matched by your company doesn't exist anymore, right?
How about a pension?
Anything, right? Like
my dad has pensions. There's no such thing as a pension.
That doesn't
anymore.
exist, right? I'm not even I'm going to tell you right now, don't even plan on your Social Security being much of a help, right? Like you are on your own on this. You just are, right? So all that stuff has gone away. Like, exactly. All the rules have changed when it comes to that. And it wasn't fair because even in the late 90s when I was going to college was still super affordable. I went to Iowa State in like 1997 for a semester for like $2,300. You know what I mean? Yes. Like I think my whole first year at Iowa State cost like $5,000. Then I quit. But
I wish I had there's a senator that was showing how much, they were like, you're saying you guys are out of touch. You don't realize how much college truly costs, because if you did with the rate of inflation, what you paid for college when you guys were in college would be equivalent to $3,500 for a person to go to a regular state college. That number now is $34,000. $34,000. That's ridiculous.
And there's no reason for that percentage of increase. I know it's a totally other conversation, but
I know
that doesn't match any other metrics of inflation that we've seen anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Question: what do you think of seller financing? I'm actually doing a video about seller financing on land, and it is possible. You just make sure you get yourself a good title attorney to do that, and make sure you understand the terms of that loan when you do a seller finance. Now, if the seller already has a mortgage on their house, again, work with that attorney to make sure that they're paying their mortgage on time, because you're going to be SOL if they're not paying their mortgage and you're paying them and they just scoot out of town and go foreclose on. Then what are you going to do? So you just have to make sure you have all your ducks in a row to make sure that property is going to be available to you when you've met all the terms of the loan agreement.
It's just to echo what she said, there's just a less reliable party involved than there would be through a normal. I know we all hate big banks, but the reality is, like, when you get another person's mortgage involved, there's just some different moving parts to it. And each state's kind of eviction and foreclosure laws come into play there too. So again, just make sure that you get an attorney involved for sure.
In the state of Louisiana, we have something called a lease purchase. So someone could live in a house for a period of time while they're fixing their credit, but they put down a very large deposit at the end of that agreement. Let's just say it's a year and a half. They agree to purchase the house. Now, if they can't meet that agreement, they take that large sum of money, and sometimes it's like $50,000 to $60,000. Yeah. I've seen it where people literally have walked away from that. They're like, we decided we just don't even want this house. They literally walked away from $60,000.
I also think seller financing is probably, if you have a better option, seller financing is usually going to cost you more, right? Like right. It's if you can get a traditional loan, it's usually going to be a smaller down payment, a lower interest rate, almost always.
Right. But some people do that because their credit has been wonky, and they had filed a bankruptcy in the past, and they want to go ahead and purchase this house because they don't want to wait the 7 years. Mm-hmm. And they have the ability, they have the ability. Sometimes people file bankruptcy for all sorts of reasons, divorces, all sorts of reasons. So they actually have the money, their credit is trash, but they want to buy a house. There's all sorts of reasons why people do seller financing. I have seen it work, especially when it comes to pieces of land. I haven't. The only thing I've ever seen one with houses is lease purchasing, but I mean that's because I'm in Louisiana, so that's a little. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. Do we have any more questions, Eddie, that you want to throw up on the screen? Oh, we're out. Well, Matt, look, we're out of questions and nobody has anything to ask, but I do want to thank you. And you know what, everybody, I'm just letting you know, because you guys love Matt so much. He has agreed. He has agreed to come on once a month. Once a month.
This is so much fun to do on Sundays. I pick my kid up after this and I eat dinner and then I go to sleep. It's awesome.
Well, they love you. They absolutely love you. So I'm glad that you're willing to come on here once a month. I appreciate it. It's a great conversation. And honestly, like I said, your people ask really great questions for us to kind of riff on. So that's great. Yep. And look, if anybody has any questions after this stream is over, please put them in the, right below. You add to the comment section, just put question and I'll answer it on the next stream, or Matt will be answering them as this video ages over the week. Also, if you have any questions and you're having a problem finding a real estate agent in your area, like I know a lot of people are having a hard time people picking up the phone, just go ahead and drop me an email and I will hook you up with, I'm in contact with over 3,500 agents throughout the United States. I have my own, actually it's over 4,000 agents in my group that I contact and that I know because of my group of talking about YouTube, helping real estate agents. So if you're having problems, let me know and I'll try to get you connected with somebody. Sometimes I can't. I'm not a genius, but I try my best to get you connected with somebody that can work with you for your specific needs. So Yep. Thank you, everybody. Tell Matt thank
Yeah.
you. Everybody say thank you to Matt because, he spends his Sunday with us and he doesn't have to. This isn't even his channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm Matt Kelderman everywhere. You can find me. I just saw Eddie pop on there. You can find me on Facebook. That's probably where you're going to see the most of my stuff.
Yes, Matt. And Matt actually is on another podcast. It's for real estate agents, but it's very interesting to listen to. And it's called The Only Real Estate Podcast You Should Be Listening to, right?
Yeah. The only real estate podcast worth listening to.
Worth listening to.
There's lots of great ones, but that's what we do. We do bits. So it's fun.
I know. I love it. Thank you, everybody. Happy Sunday.
See ya.